Alright, welcome back. So let's do a few problems. Let's look at question number 1 right here. Right, number 1 says the chance of it raining is 9 out of 11, 2 out of 50, and 7 out of 16. Okay, so like I said, probability could be in fractions. So what does this mean? Well, is it likely for it to rain if it's 9 out of 11? Well, is it, again, probability is from 0 to 1. So is 9 out of 11 closer to 0 or closer to 1? Well, what does the top number have to be for it to be closer to 1? Well, if it was 11 out of 11, right, that same thing over the same thing, that would give me 1. Right, so if the numerator is the same or closer to 11, that means it'll be very likely, right? It'll be 100%. Right? So that means 9 out of 11, that's very likely. It's also saying, right, part over the whole, right? The 11 is the total. Out of the total 11, I have 9, right? That's a lot, meaning it's very likely. Okay, well, how about over here? I have only 2 out of 50, so that means this is not likely for it to rain, right? Just say there's 50 days, and it's probably going to only rain 2 days, right? That's not a lot. How about 7 out of 16? Well, that's a little bit difficult. Is it closer to 16, right, this number here? If it's closer to 16, then it'll be 100%, right, 16 over 16. But if it was closer to 0, right, 0 over 16, then it'll be 0%. So which is it? Well, what's half of 16? It's 8, right? If it was 8 out of 16, that would have given me 50%. So, is this going to be more or less than 50%? Right? I have less than 8, so that means this has to be less than 50%, but it's pretty much close to 50, so it's, right, it might or it might not rain, but it's a little bit more likely that it will not rain if it's 7 out of 16 chance. How about over here? The probability of school closing because of light snow is blank. What do you guys think? If it's just light snow in New York, they're not gonna close it. So what's the probability? I might say something like maybe 0.05 chance. Right? That's really close to 0. Right? If I actually move the decimal place right 2 times, that means this is 5%. Right? So I'm saying that, oh, the chances when it's just light snow, the school's not gonna close. Maybe you might say 0.01. Right, even say 0.003, right? Maybe you think it's very, very unlikely, or you could write it as a fraction. You could say 1 out of 100, right? There's a whole bunch of things you could say. Maybe you could say it's 2 out of, 60, right? A whole bunch of things, right? As long as the number is very, very small, right, then I'm saying that's not likely. How about this one? The probability of a large earthquake in New York City this year is blank. I don't think it's that likely. I think it's actually very, very unlikely for a big one. Maybe I'll say 0.00001. Right, very small chance. But my next question, in Tokyo, a big earthquake happening this year, it's actually very, very, very likely in Tokyo. Well, it's not like a very, very big earthquake. It's not like 100% sure. But in Tokyo, right, every week there's an earthquake. You feel it all the time. But a large earthquake, right, compared to New York City, definitely larger than 0.0001, I might say maybe 0.2. Right, what's that 0.2? If I move the decimal place twice, right, I'm saying basically the same thing as 20%. Right, so it's actually very likely for it to rain. It is kind of, 20% is a small number, but if we're talking about earthquakes, right, that's kind of a high chance, right? You don't really want to be there if you don't like earthquakes. Anyway, the chances of snow in January from different countries are shown below. So, if I give you, right, the chances of snow is 0.72, is that likely? Yeah, because it's closer to 1. Right? Again, probability is from 0 to 1. If I say 0.72, that means it's closer to 1 or 100%. Right? This is actually, if I move it twice, I'm talking about 72%. That's pretty likely. How about 0.981? Yeah, that's definitely close to 1. That's very, very likely. How about 0.1? Well, from 0 to 1, is it closer to 0 or 1? Definitely closer to 0, right? So that means it's very unlikely for this place to snow. How about if it's 0.5? Well, that means we're not really sure in January if it is or it is not going to snow, right? It's 50% chance. How about as a fraction? How about 3/4? Well, if it was going to be 1, it would have to be 4 over 4. Right? If it's 0% chance, it'll be 0 over 4. Which is it closer to, the 4 or the 3? 4 or the 0? In this case, it's closer, right, to 4, because 3/4, right, if I do the division, that's 75%. That's pretty likely. How about over here? Oh, well, is the numerator closer to 20, making it 20 out of 20, or 100%? Or is it closer to 0 out of 20? Definitely closer to 0, so that means it's very unlikely for it to snow here. How about over here? Well, this time the number in the numerator is pretty big, but compared to 500, right, the 70 is kind of small. So, right, actually, this probability means that it's not really going to snow. It's not that likely for it to snow. Not impossible, but not that likely. Right? Just say if there were, say, 500 hours in January, maybe only 70 of the hours it will snow, right? So that's not much snow. So anyway, that's the idea about how to deal with percents, right? We could use decimals and fractions to talk about the chance of something. The end. Sayonara.